Howdy. So probably the last type of video you'd think I'd be doing would be making a Blundstone video, but I happened to walk into REI one day and thought that these were interesting and gave them a chance. I'll give you the pros and cons, and you might be surprised compared to the other Australian workback boots on what my opinion of them is. I'll start with the weight. They are 2 pounds, 5.6 ounces. So probably like the lower end of a polyurethane midsole boot. Just so y'all know, polyurethane's heavier weight than EVA. EVA is the croc material. It's also what you'll see on most athletic sneakers like your Nikes, etc. EVA tends to compress after about 300 to 500 miles and loses its cushion, whereas polyurethane will last much longer for its cushioning, but polyurethane also weighs a little bit more. Another thing about polyurethane is, well, most of these Australian work boots are polyurethane midsoles, but polyurethane also has something called hydrolysis, where if you leave it somewhere for months to years, the water, I suppose, will accumulate inside the midsole, and it can help. It'll deteriorate the bond as well as the foam, and you'll just start to see the midsole just above the outsole start to crumble. I have to put that in all my polyurethane videos. Sorry if you've heard it. So again, 2 pounds, 5.5 ounces. That's about the weight you'd see in a pair of Solomons, which are typically EVA, but are on the heavier end of an EVA boot. Most EVAs are about 2 pounds or under. As for grams, we have, wait, that's 37.5 ounces. For grams, we have 1 kilogram, 1.63 kilograms. So moving away from weight, we'll I have to say, looking at this, the leather is, it's pretty good, and it's also designed in a way that I would say the way I'd prefer one of these Chelsea or Australian work boots to be made, and that's with as little stitching as possible. And as you can see, the leather is wrapping around all the way to the back. And interestingly enough, that back part here is glued in, but it's not sewn in. I'm wondering if that's to help waterproof the boot. They do say that this version is waterproof. This is the all-terrain version with the Vibram outsole. So basically, the less stitching you have, the less holes, miniature holes you have for water to penetrate through. So this is the way that a Chelsea boot should be made. I wouldn't say it's the upper end of a spectrum for leather, but I'd say it's about a 3 out of 5. It gets the job done of what it's supposed to get done. It doesn't have some weird plastic finish on it or anything like that. The ergonomics of it, this is an 8.5. My size is a US 10. For those that are using Australian sizing, which is the same as UK as far as I know, except for UK or for Australian, the half sizes are a wide. So they only go by technically whole sizes, and if you get a half size, you're basically getting the E width. The normal size is a D width. So I got 8.5, which would basically roughly translate to a US 9 wide because of the 8.5. And Australian to US typically is about, in my experience, about one size larger for men's at least. So I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see that, but it says it right there, 8.5. The 11.22 stands for, I believe, the date that it was manufactured. It actually said it on the box. And I've said this because of the hydrolysis issue I mentioned earlier, that any company making polyurethane boots should be putting the manufacture date, because if it's sitting in a warehouse for years and then they sell it to you and it's like 3 years old, well, there's a good chance you might have an issue with hydrolysis, which means that they shouldn't be selling it at that point. In my opinion, that these companies, if they made a product and it's sitting on a shelf for more than a year or two, they should probably just sell it at a discount. With that noted, so it also says the manufacturing date right there, 11/15/22 for US. And then so the box had that, this had it, etc. So I think that's a very good thing on their part. I don't see other companies doing that. I have to say though, again, I'm a US 10, going back to that. Again, these are Australian 8.5, and these are probably one of the best fitting in terms of the toe box. I'd give the ergonomics of it It's about a 3 out of 5. It's wider than it looks for my toe box, and it's not under the point where I would say it's good, like for a 4 out of 5. It's not like the CFEs I've tried, but it's for Australian work boots. It's probably the best that I've had, just because, for the most part, because you don't have a lacing here, your toes are typically going to ram forward when you're stepping. Now, for ergonomics, I will say that this back pocket here is too loose, in my opinion. I do want more of a snug fit. So while this might do a good job holding like the instep in, it doesn't do a good job at locking the heel in. Now, one advantage of that, it means more hot air can escape, and because this is quote unquote waterproof, and it uses that sheepskin inside right there, it is a warmer boot, so that might be a good thing that there's more hot air that can escape, but it doesn't help with the fit, especially if they're trying to sell it as an all-terrain, like when you're able to take off the trails. So that's my opinion on the ergonomics. The sole, again, just to show you, here's the polyurethane. This is the midsole. This is what most of these Australian work boots use. Sort of a dense foam material. Again, what I was saying with the PU versus EVA. This strip here, though, is the outsole, and it is a Vibram. And it's probably the first Vibram I've seen on one of these type of boots. So it is either rubber or synthetic rubber, like a nitrile is what it's called usually here. The traction on it, I have to say it's pretty good. It's better than what I've seen on most. One criticism I've seen on polyurethane outsoles is they're a bit slick. So you might see more aggressive tread. This one doesn't have to be as aggressive, and they call it mud shedding. And I did actually hike in this off trail, and it did a pretty good job at getting rid of the crap that gets gunked inside of the outsoles. So I'm going to say that that's a pro as well. I'm pretty impressed by that. So in terms of durability, though, some people think that, oh, it's got to be rubber, it's got to be Vibram. That's the only thing I'll buy. I don't think that's necessarily the case of what you're looking for. Like if you look at the Redbacks, they use a polyurethane midsole as well. So again, this material here's polyurethane, and then they use a TPU, which is a thermoplastic polyurethane, and they have a more aggressive tread compared to this. Now, I will say the con that I've noticed with like the Redbacks is if you're dealing with abrasive terrain like sharp rocks, like lava rock or shale or anything like that, it will shred the aggressive part of the insole that's like right in the center right there. But in terms of like if you're wearing it in more of an urban setting where you don't have these very sharp jagged things whacking at it, the durability actually can last fairly long on the thermoplastic polyurethane outsoles. So to each their own. This definitely, if you're looking for something that is going to be in rocky terrain, again, a lot of people are going to like cringe wearing an Australian boot, not a lace up for that type of terrain, but it's all trade-offs. So usually the reason I go for these is the ease of putting them on, and can't quite ease of putting on. I'll say is a 2 out of 5. Like, wait, no, a 4 out of 5. It's not something you could just slide on with without having to use your hands, but you just slide one finger through the back there, and then I kind of put my foot in like that, and I corkscrew it in, and then it usually slides in every time. It's super easy. The insole, I have to say, usually with these type of boots, they're just crap to me. So this one, was it warm? Yeah, but it's also got 200 grams of Thinsulate inside there as well. The sheepskin, I suppose, helps with separating the midsole here, which typically will get cold and it'll radiate up to your foot. But to be complete, and the other thing too is that this is EVA, which is also an insulative properties as well compared to polyurethane. What I mean by that is that if it's cold, doesn't mean that the EVA material is going to get cold. So it does do a decent job at separating that, but I would say it's not very comfortable. Insole. This has got like a piece of pour-on right there. They also have a little piece of pour-on in the bottom there as well. Ankle support on these, if you're looking for that, it's pretty much non-existent. The weight, I already talked about that. Ease of putting on, and so I guess it really comes down to what's, I was pretty positive opinion on these boots overall. So I guess what's my issue on them? Well, they cost me $280 at REI. I actually got them at a discount because they were a return, but I will be returning them after I make this video, which is why this is more of an overview than a review. I don't think they're worth $280. I went to Everything Australian this morning, which is the store I would recommend at this time for the pricing, and they do international shipping, and they're Australian made boots by Redback, Mongrel, and Rossi. Now you have to know Rossi doesn't make all their boots in Australia anymore, but um, they're about $80 to $100 US. So you could basically buy 3 of those for one of these. Do I think that this is going to last 3 times as long? I don't. Um, I don't even know if it would last the same length because I've had issues with the reason I originally tried the Redbacks in the past was because these just didn't last long enough for me. I had an issue with the hydrolysis. They were clearly manufactured and sat on a shelf for years and then sold to me, and that's probably because not Redback, Blundstone is an internationally recognized brand, and so their product is they're making millions of these a year, and so without a doubt, a lot of them are just sitting around. And they also make I've criticized this with a lot of polyurethane manufacturers too. If you have a million models, then you're going to have more models that are going to be not have like a just on time shipping schedule. They're going to be sitting somewhere and waiting, and they're not going to be sold because it might be like one with a unicorn pattern on the outsole or something. I'm just making this up, and I think this kind of leads to that comparison that people have of sort of Doc Martens and the alternatives with them, the Solavers. Is Blundstone a Doc Marten? Just to give you a little bit more context on that, just a sec. Basically, Doc Martens used to be made in England. They were made in the manufacturing facility that Solavers are being made of now, but they moved over around the mid 2000s. They were sold essentially to a fashion company. You hear this countless times. They start getting made in Southeast Asia, and the quality declines. Do I necessarily think that Blundstone's quality has declined? I don't know. It's hard to say because, again, the issue I primarily have had is the hydrolysis, where it's been sitting on a shelf for too long, then it reaches the user. Maybe the user leaves it in their closet, and then they try it on and it doesn't work, or maybe the manufacturer's just left it in. I don't think Blundstone is at the point that Doc Martens is at, to be completely honest. I do still think they make a solid boot. However, I do think that their ambitions have changed to something that is probably to more, I'm not going to say that it's just something that they're trying to make as much money as possible, because isn't that the point of every business? But I am going to say I think it's more of a fashion oriented brand now, and it's more of a branding thing. And so I almost wonder, am I paying about $180 more for a tag right here that says Blundstone? And a part of me thinks that that might be the case. Now, you could argue with these that they contain 3M insulate, thinsulate. They contain Vibram soles. I don't think they have Gore-Tex, but it claims it's waterproof, and there's a bajillion alternatives now. But I don't think that's worth $180 more, to be completely honest. And just because it's got a piece of rubber on the bottom, whether it's plastic or real rubber, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to last longer than a thermoplastic polyurethane outsole. And some of the other manufacturers I did mention, like Mongrel, does have versions with a rubber outsole as well. So I think that's my conclusion there. I will be returning these to REI, and I will probably be buying something else that is made in for about this price point. About $280, I could buy a pair of boots that are made in the country that Vibram is from. I could be buying a pair of what are they called? Kinetrex. I could buy ones made in Germany. I could buy Meindls. I could buy Loas. So I'll probably end up exchanging these for a pair of Zamberlins, which is also made in Italy. So it's like, is the ease of putting these on worth it? It's your choice of trade-off. Is a nylon strip that says Blundstone, is that what's worth it for you? For me, that's going to be a no. I've kind of moved away from these Australian boots, and I kind of bought these in a weird moment, but that I needed them. But yeah, just to give you my basically two problems with them in comparison would be, one, I don't think they don't have some magic thing. The other alternatives, a lot of them don't use as much leather. The Redback's got a very good design, even though I don't like the outsole so much. The Mongrel's overall a good product. I have some qualms with them as well, but I don't think it's worth $180 more, and I don't think it's more comfortable than the others. Now, with all of these Australian work boots, I could just remove the outsole and put in something else. I typically use like a wool felt liner or a piece of cork, like a Mindle's got an outsole, or excuse me, an insole. And I also have been trying another one by Tread Labs, um, which is like a polyurethane sheet. So it'd be just like a piece of foam here, and then it's got like a more of a plastic piece of a shell that's under here that's more stiff. So to be completely honest, if you're looking for comfort, unless you really just don't like the sort of height of the heel, I didn't particularly like Redback's height on their heel. However, I've talked to people with higher arches than me, and they love the height of the Redback heel. Um, but to be honest, if you're wanting comfort, my recommendation at this moment would just be throw out the insole and buy something like Superfeet or the Tread Labs, because those are a little bit thinner than the ones I typically use, like a wool felt or a cork. Even the Mindle insole, which is a silicone impregnated cork, is a little bit too thick for something like this, but you might be able to make it work if you cut it down, though. But that would be my recommendation at this point. And I just think you could get a really solid insole. I mean, even a Dr. Scholl's. You could buy a Dr. Scholl's and an Australian work boot made in Australia, not made in Vietnam, for 120 to 150 bucks, and it's still almost half the price of a pair of the Blundstones. So that's my opinion. I think right now that they're upcharging it because of the branding.